Hello, it's Jack Gill and welcome to the Transfer Youth Roundup, or the Youth Transfer Roundup, probably a better name for it. I'm joined today by James McHale, Liam Emery, who's usually behind the camera for us on the youth, and Joe Hagen. Hagen, difficult last name there. But yeah, we're going to try something different today. This is something we're going to try and keep doing weekly during the transfer window, obviously in January, and just round up the transfers of all the young players and what's going on. Also the latest rumours going around. We're going to start obviously with Ryan Brewster, the big youth player that's gone out on loan from Liverpool. Of course, he's joined Swansea, linking up with his fellow coach, which he knows through England, of course, James. What do you think of this deal?
I mean, it makes sense for all parties. Like, really, he's not really performed at under 23 level this season, and he's not really done much when he's been called up to the first team, and I think he just needs a bit of confidence. He's not a false nine. He's a proper poacher, isn't he? He's a proper striker's striker. And I think he needs somewhere where he can develop that first, and then maybe a year down the line we can then mould him into what we want. But I wouldn't rush in right now. I think this is a perfect move for him.
I mean, he was given a lot of hype at the start of the season, wasn't he?
Definitely. It
was always going to be a difficult task, Joe, with obviously Sturridge leaving, him having to live up to Sturridge's boots. He's not really lived up to it at all, has he?
No, I think he's had a few injury problems, hasn't he? And that hasn't helped. And obviously he's got a lot of players in front of him. So I think this loan move does make the most sense for his stage in his career. And as you said before, he is reuniting with Steve Cooper, who he won the World Cup with under 17. So I think best thing for both parties, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously as well. I think he'll settle in quite easily. With knowing Jan Dander there as well. So it's a good club for him to move to, and I think he was crying out for a loan. I know Klopp said in his press conference today that he was a player that looked like he needed a loan move, and I think it's perfect for him, and it's going to be interesting to watch him and how he does in the Championship when he's given that opportunity to play first team. We know he's a star, we know he's a good player.
You know he's got it in there, it's just he's struggled with adapting to a system that isn't really his game.
Yeah, Joe's got it bang on as well with his injuries.
Exactly.
He's struggled with a few this season. Obviously coming back from a long-term injury. He just needs a regular spell in the first team somewhere, and then come back to Liverpool probably at the end of the season and see how he does there.
Exactly.
Moving on, Adam Idah obviously broke the headlines last weekend in the FA Cup. He was one of the news stories of the weekend in terms of getting a hat-trick for Norwich, of course, against Preston in what I believe was a 4-2 win. Before that, we'd obviously heard of Adam Idah's name, but not from a Norwich perspective. He's been linked with a loan move to Doncaster Rovers. So we have called in Doncaster Rovers expert Liam Emery, who usually does our camera work for us, but I thought it would be good to get your opinion on Adam Idah, obviously. So you were aware of links before this Norwich game, right?
It wasn't links.
Okay.
A deal was verbally agreed before by the two parties. He then goes and scores an hat-trick, and Doncaster's Twitter just erupted. Everyone was just like, oh, he's not coming now. I mean, he's actually, I wouldn't say he's set to start, but he's set to feature in the squad. We've got Pookie, he's got fitness doubts. I don't know whether he's going to be past fit for the game.
Is that for Old Trafford, yeah?
Is this for the, yeah.
Okay.
So he could be appearing at Old Trafford. He could have been appearing at the Memorial Ground. But Old Trafford will have to do for him, I guess. Excuse my pronunciation. Drimic? He's the Swiss striker?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Drimic, yeah.
Drimic. He's only just came back from injury.
Yeah.
He's only back in training. And the other striker, Serbny?
Something like that, I think, yeah.
He's linked with a move back to Germany, which leaves Idah as their only fit striker. So
it's interesting. We spoke about this morning on the way to work, obviously off air. You think it will still go through, but at the end of the window?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, they've currently got issues in terms of striking options. Will they recruit maybe to look towards the Championship next season? Have they given up in terms of the relegation fight? Do they accept the down? Are they looking for next season in terms of a reaction? Maybe, maybe not. I reckon if so, they'll loan out Idah, continue his development, and Doncaster's a great place for him to go.
it's certainly interesting when a player scores a hat-trick on the debut, especially a young player, and especially in January they're always going to have teams swarming around them, and I think Adam Ida may be a case of that. I think it's just unfortunate for Doncaster, really, the situation that they found themselves in, obviously crying out for a striker since John Marquez left in the summer, and they've not really replaced him. They tried with Sinclair, another young player, but he's picked up a young injury. Sorry, not Sinclair, Sterling from Tottenham, Keziah Sterling, but he got injured, didn't he? And he's gone back to Tottenham. So I think it might be interesting to see. We know Darren Moore's at Doncaster. He seems to be looking towards the Premier League and young strikers to loan in.
Niall Ennis in on loan at the moment.
Yeah.
That's who we're relying on for goals. He's also been injured, so it'd be nice to get another player in just to.
Interesting as well. You'll be loving this, but Cameron John as well, good centre back from Wolves, loan.
Out of favour at the moment.
Yeah, but there you go. A few young players at Doncaster Rovers. If you want to head over and watch them, I wouldn't recommend it. But there you go. Anyway, talking to Doncaster, another player that we know from Liverpool, of course, Herbie Kane. He's gone on loan to Hull City. This is one that on the youth show over on the redmentv.com we spoke about a lot in the summer. I was nailed on he was going to join Hull on loan at the start of the season. Grant McCann, former Doncaster manager, where Herbie Kane made League One Team of the Year last season. He's a good player, isn't he, James?
He's a very good player, and he has more to his game than just sort of being that offensive sort of focus too. He does able to track back. He's a proper box-to-box midfielder, but then he got 7 assists in the league, 4 goals in 40 games for Doncaster. That's pretty good numbers for a player it's his debut season in professional football, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he sort of acclimatised almost instantly. And from what I've seen, the Doncaster fans seem to like him as well.
Oh, as a fan favourite, we'd take him back.
I remember you messaging me before when it went through saying, "What do you know of this lad?" And I was like, "Well, he's the captain, but he's never really done anything. He's struggled with injuries, come from Bristol City, that sort of thing." And then by the end of the season, you were bugging me to come along with you to watch him because he was supposedly very good, and his passing range is incredible, and he was thriving off playing week in, week out. Joe, you probably haven't watched him many times.
Not as much as you've, no.
You've probably seen him a couple of times here and there. Well, what did you make of him? I know against Aston Villa, I thought personally he tried too hard. He didn't look very good. He didn't look like the best player in a Liverpool shot on the pitch, which he should have done that day.
Yeah, I haven't watched him that much. I think there's a player there. He was nominated for the Golden Boy in 2018, wasn't he? It's up to him now to progress, isn't it? Obviously, he played last season in the League One under Grant McCann. Now he's going to the Championship. So it's up to him now to kick on. He's got a manager there that he knows, and obviously he trusts him as well. Played other games for him. So yeah, it's up to him now. He looks like a player, doesn't he? So
yeah, the thing I picked up from watching him at Doncaster, I know Liam thought the same, and obviously watching him through the youth levels, you see a similar thing. He's a player that really suited the system under Doncaster. Grant McCann liked to play a certain way, kind of like the way
similar to Liverpool in terms of a fluid midfield three. 2 can go up, 1 can drop in. He can go up. He can, all round box midfielder, can be that attacking threat.
It is interesting. I have loved him through the youth ranks, and he scored a very, very good goal for us this season, a winner in the derby. So that was in the 91st minute, I think, as well, which I know he wanted to leave in the summer, but he stayed, and he's still done a very good job of it. And he kept hinting, Liam kept crying because he kept hinting of a return to Doncaster Rovers, but unfortunately for Liam, that wasn't the case. But another Liverpool boy that has moved on loan, this time abroad, is Isaac Christie-Davis, who's gone to, again, Cercle Bruges, one or the other. I'm not a Belgian football expert, but I think it's a decent move for him.
Yeah,
what do you
definitely.
make of it, James?
Well, he's not really kicked on this season. I think he's only played 4 times in the Premier League 2, and he appeared twice in our pretty awful Football League trophy campaign, which was an absolute disaster. But even in those 4 youth games, he got 2 assists and a goal. He's having an impact even when he's not really in the team.
It was interesting because obviously he signs from Chelsea, Joe. Big expectations. Everyone thinks he's going to be the next best thing. We've got him on a free. you know, it's looking like a good deal for us. It's looking like Dominic Solanke, where at the very least we'll make a lot of money from it. But instead, we spoke about it, didn't we? It was more of a slow burner. And you said at one point that you think he'll leave on a free at the end of the season.
I don't think he's got much of a future personally, especially with that contract running down.
But I thought he was good against Aston Villa, didn't you, Joe?
Yeah, he played all right. It's a bit of a shame, really, because we got him on a freedom week in Chelsea. I think that's a massive move for him, going to a different country. I applaud him for that. Yeah. Says a lot about his character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if he can talk the language, but I assume that's going to be a massive barrier for him.
Difficult.
I don't think he's fluent in Flemish, but you never know. You know, he might have done a GCSE in it. You never know.
Sleeve. You're not sure.
I mean, I'm glad he's got the move. Like, I think he was unlucky to have sort of been a cover player for us in the under-23s. He was playing as a winger at times, wasn't he?
False line as well.
Exactly,
in the strike position.
Like,
so
he's done all right, but he hasn't nailed on a starting place, has he? And when you've got players like Herbie Kane, Chiravella, Dixon Bonner, you know, every week, it is going to be hard to get in when he hasn't got a standout quality, really. But
it's like you say, he's not got too long left on his contract.
Yeah.
I think this is probably a get yourself on the market, kidder. You know,
get a good
that sort
move
of
for next season,
but as you say, he certainly performed better than I expected against Aston Villa. I thought he was one of the better players on the pitch for us that day. Which, again, thinking about it, he should have been really with the experience he's got.
Definitely.
Joe Hardy, a signing for Liverpool in January. He's come from Brentford B. He actually comes from Liverpool himself.
Yeah.
What do you make of that, James? I know we spoke about it earlier, but
yeah, I mean, I think he's mainly come in to cover Brewster's place in the team. You know, I think although Brewster hasn't been very good, he's still had that presence up front, hasn't he? Where he's always been a goal threat and he's always sort of looked to bring other players in. So putting, say, like Larouci there just hasn't worked at all. You know, Larouci, he's not a striker. He's a winger, come left back. So having a natural goal scorer there who can finish, who's got 40 goals in 80 games for Brentford B, it's not going to weaken us at all. If anything, it will give us a sort of different dimension going forward because we haven't had really a goal scorer up front, have we? We've relied on Curtis Jones a lot, with him being away.
That's been the problem, and with Curtis Jones going back to the first team, going up to the first team, it makes them even shorter, and it's like Brewster's gone out on loan. There's no one, and we spoke earlier on the youth show about the fact that Leighton Stewart's had to step up at times, age 16, his first time in the under-18s league, and he's stepping up to the under-23s, and we needed a player like that, and a goal scorer. I've got a tweet here from Maxi Angelo who says, Joe Hardy, 21 years old, from Liverpool. In 2016-17, he had 11 goals in 19 games for City's under-18s, which led to his move to Brentford in 2017. He then had 40 goals in 80 games for Brentford B, obviously one every 2 games, that is. Top scorer in 2018-19 in the Reserve League. 3 goals in 5 games this season for Brentford B. He's the typical number 9, and he's a fantastic goal-scoring pedigree. So it's easy to see why we've got it.
Yeah, I think it's helpful in that he has been playing against adults, hasn't he? As far as I'm aware, Brentford they do play, you know, semi-professional football. So we've struggled coming up against more physical sides, but he's going to be absolutely at home with that, isn't he? He's used to playing against men.
The thing is, as well, you've got the fact that we're in a position in the under-23s league where we need to kind of stay up. Yeah. And goals are going to be an important thing. Exactly. And we've created a lot this season, but
you haven't had the finisher, have we? You know, Elliott's too young. He's not really got that sort of finishing yet. Well, obviously, then Brewster too.
It's the chopping and changing constantly. You know, with the big players constantly going to the first team in the travelling squad. Yeah. It's been difficult for them, and you know, I think the plan was for Bobby Duncan and Paul Glatzel to step up this season, but one's done his ACL and one's swanning it in Italy somewhere, playing no football whatsoever in the first team. So yeah, it's been difficult for us in terms of under 23s level, but hopefully that will change now. An interesting one now, Eddie Nketiah. He's obviously been recalled by Arsenal. Easy to see why, isn't it, Liam?
I don't know.
Like, it's not. He's been unlucky, hasn't he? Really, that things haven't worked out for him.
At Leeds, he's always been behind Bamford. Yeah. I don't really know why.
I remember a point in the start of the season before it started clicking for Leeds, where Bamford wasn't scoring for him, and everyone literally to be full of like Bet365 pages, all of that going, why not use Eddie Nketiah? Why does he keep sticking with Patrick Bamford? I'm pretty sure at this point in time, Nketiah was coming off the bench, scoring a goal, or
He was doing
or
alright,
doing
wasn't
all
he?
right coming off the bench. And then Bamford's obviously started coming into form, so Bielsa's
I don't
picking
even
him
think
more
it's
and
that
more.
because Bamford's only got himself 10 goals. I mean, it's impressive in some ways, but the amount of chances that Leeds create, the sheer quality that they have in their team over their rivals, I'd expect him to be reaching 15, 20 by now for the chances he's had. And Nketiah, I don't know, he hadn't had a look in. He brought that energy, but just not favoured by Bielsa.
I mean, what do you make of it, Joe? Obviously, with England, we obviously know Ryan Brewster. As I say, Liverpool fans, we hyped him up at the start of the season. We thought he was going to be the next big thing. We've taken quite a lot of stick for it since with the whole Mason Greenwood thing and whatever. But obviously, throughout England, it's always Eddie Nketiah that leads the line for the under-21s. So what do you make of it? Do you think it's a player there? Obviously, he's been linked with loan moves elsewhere since being recalled. So
I think there is a player there. I think Bielsa was impressed with him. He called him a complete player after one of the performances. And as you said, he did start well, didn't he? I think he got 4 goals
yeah.
in his first 6 games. But then he only made 2 starts overall. And to me, it looks very similar to the Ryan Brewster situation. You know, he was behind the pecking order, he was behind Bamford and Click. So he's had to go back to Arsenal now. And I'm sure he'll get another loan move now, won't he?
Yeah. I mean, we said earlier, I think he's linked to Aston Villa and another Premier League club.
Yeah.
I mean, the Aston Villa thing might just be because everyone knows they're desperate for a striker,
Yeah.
so they're being linked with absolutely every striker at the minute. And then Bristol City, who are the other two? Bristol
We've
City?
got Forest as well. Yeah.
Forest.
Is an interesting one because they've got
Sheffield
Graben.
Wednesday. Yeah.
He's still doing quite well.
He's doing very
He's
well.
still
for them.
doing well.
I mean,
He
they
always
are
does, though,
they are
yeah.
naturally a low scoring team, but a large proportion of their goals is coming through Graben. So
He can play out wide though as well, can't he? And I think
yeah,
at Leeds, Nketiah was unlucky that Bielsa seems to always prefer a proper target man to lead the press. You know, in the past when he's gone with that same formation, he's always gone with a target man.
Sheffield Wednesday's interesting as well because that's a similar thing with the target man and it's hard to see, isn't it,
I
when
think
you've
they've
got
adopted a 4-4-2.
yeah. But Stephen Fletcher did get injured in the FA Cup last week, so it's a bit Forest. I'd be interested to see. I know they were doing well. They've had a couple of shaky
they've certainly
results
dropped
recently.
off.
It'd be interesting to see what he does there. I know they've got is it a Spanish manager? Their manager, Portuguese. One or the other, but I know he got them playing some decent football at the start of the season. So it'd be interesting. I'd personally like him to go there and see how he does there.
I think he'd offer Forest a totally different option, but do I see him getting in front of Graben? No.
You'd find a way to play both of them, wouldn't you? If you're going to bring him in, he's not going to go and sit on the bench of the Arsenal lot. I'm going to let that happen. So
True.
you'd assume that promises would be made about game time.
True.
But
So we'll move on to an interesting story that we can laugh about, really. With Manchester United, who have decided that Borthwick Jackson's worth recalling, who has hardly played for Tranmere this season. Fans are very glad he's gone. 22 years old. I'm asking you why, James.
I mean, I'd love to know why, to be honest, because it doesn't make any sense. I know Maguire's out injured, but is he going to be the answer to all their questions? Who have they got now that's fit at centre-back? He's more naturally on the left as well, isn't he? So it just, as opposed to bringing someone in, they've recalled Borthwick Jackson.
I mean, Joe, it could be a situation where, similarly to us with Nat Phillips, where we've been desperate, we've recalled him, and he'll go back out on loan when the injury problems are better. What do you make of it?
I think he's been recalled because of the Maguire injury and because Ashley Young's going to Inter Milan.
Okay.
He's a left back, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's got like 6 months now to get a new contract. So maybe, and Solskjaer likes young players, doesn't he? So I think this might be an opportunity for him to get a new contract and maybe stake a place in the team. I mean, that loan to Tranmere was his 4th loan move. He started off really well. Under Louis van Gaal, he was in the team. Played against Stokes, didn't he? But it seems like he's stagnated ever since then.
I think it's interesting though because they've had that Brandon Williams that's coming through, but obviously they probably don't want to put too much football on him. They've got Europa League football as well.
Yeah.
And then you've got Luke Shaw, obviously, but I know he's full of injuries, so it is interesting. I think obviously why have a man stuck out on loan when you can
Yeah, I mean,
you can bring him back.
if
and
he's
he can
not
be
playing out
important.
on loan, I think he's unfortunate that he's been recalled after a tough loan spell at the same time Maguire's been injured, and that people are just putting two and two together and
true.
seeing that he's the answer to Maguire, when it's probably a bit of both, to be fair. They mightn't have recalled him so soon had Maguire not been injured. But I think it's hard to tell right now until we get to sort of the matches on the weekend.
I think, again, we spoke about it off air earlier with Chris Smalling, where they've ballsed up and not put a recall clause in his loan, and they'd want to call him back right now with the form he's on, but instead they're having to settle for Borthwick Jackson because they spent 18 million on Maguire in the summer.
They're
So
settling for a League Two
Yeah.
player. He got relegated from League One with Scunthorpe. He's currently in the relegation zone with Tranmere, not even getting into the team.
United quality, though, really.
they're causing their own problems.
Ollie's at the wheel.
Well, we're gonna stick with League One there actually, and a bit of an interesting point with Rochdale and last weekend's FA Cup. I forget his name every time. What's his name?
Luke Matheson.
Luke Matheson, that's the one. He of course set up the 40 role for Rochdale last weekend
Sick of
against
hearing about
Newcastle. But Masterson also, if you remember, and cast your mind back to the start of the season, scored against Manchester United. So that might be a player to look on. Liam obviously knows League One a lot. Does his name get spoken of in League One? No? Not at all?
Really?
I mean, he lit up when he scored against United, but
Has he not really done anything else?
that's it really. I don't know whether he's been starting. I mean, I know that they had Keith Hill at the end of last season. They parted ways and they've adopted for a more footballing approach. It started to work at the start of the season. They've slowly tailored off, going towards the bottom half. But in terms of him himself,
He's not really
I can't
kicked
comment.
on then. He's
I
still
don't
quite
really
young
know.
though, isn't he, really? I think he was playing against United because of injuries and stuff. I don't think he'd be in their strongest. You wouldn't want to rush in someone in, would you, at 17 years
Certainly,
old?
I know he impressed a lot against Newcastle last weekend as well. So it'll be interesting to keep our eyes on him throughout the course of the rest of the season and the future, of course, as well. Let's have a little bit chat about Chelsea now, lads, because obviously we know and we've praised constantly, me and you, James, on the youth show this season, Frank Lampard. Both the under-18s and under-23s for Chelsea are doing brilliantly. He's obviously putting a lot of faith and trust in the youth within the first team. Tomori's doing well. Reece James is coming through after coming back from injury. Tammy Abraham was one of the Premier League's top scorers at one point. I think he's tailored off a bit recently.
it's just off Vardy, I believe.
Yeah, I know Danny Ings has taken over him as well. So
Has he? Yeah.
yeah, but now they've got that transfer ban uplifted, James. Do you
Yeah,
think
I mean-
Lampard will stick with that youthful approach or not?
I mean, from what I've heard, he's going after a striker and he's going after a centre-back. I'm not sure who else they might be targeting right now. Maybe another right winger too, from what I've heard.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
want a winger.
It's going to be difficult for like the likes of Tomori unless they move on, someone like Christensen. Or I've seen Rudiger even being linked with a move away because of his injury issues. So I think they're going to have to move someone out, otherwise Tomori's going to be completely blocked out of the team. Zuma seems to be, getting minutes, doesn't he, as well? And he seems to be a favourite. So someone's going to have to be moved on, otherwise Tomori's going to suffer.
I saw you shaking your head there, Liam. Do you think he'll just go out and buy players?
I don't want him to. I look at his team, it's exciting. I mean, it's not going to win the trophies, which Chelsea ultimately have to do, to maintain themselves as a football club and a business. But as a squad, they excite me.
Yeah.
Tomori, I loved him last year at Derby.
It's a good
Partnership
to
as
see,
well.
isn't it? It's good to see a top team giving minutes to very young players who mightn't have come through.
You have to praise Frank Lampard because Kurt Zuma and Tomori as a centre-back partnership, and let's be honest, that's probably been their strongest partnership all season. And them two as a centre-back partnership in the Premier League for a club that Chelsea have been regularly in the top four for the last 12 or so
the
weeks.
league's been rather poor.
Yeah, I'd say I'd completely agree with you there, but at the same time, Lampard deserves praise as much as the likes of Solskjaer deserve being criticised. Lampard deserves praise on that sense. But I think, to be honest with you, I'm completely with you. I don't know what you are with Joe, but I think he needs to stick with the youthful thing. I mean, I think they need obviously heads in there as well. players that can compete with the young players and push them young players on even more. But I don't think necessarily if a big player comes in, I think it should be like Azpilicueta, where he knows that actually at the minute his place isn't safe in that Chelsea side. He knows that actually them young players are pushing him out of there. And if a player comes into Chelsea, I think they should know that no matter how high of a calibre they are, that actually the young players are fighting for them places.
I think he should buy some players, some senior players. Yeah, he's done a very good job with the players that he's got, and yeah, the young players have got them to that position. But they're in the top 4 at the moment, and they were showing a few weaknesses. They had a few back-to-back defeats, but got beat by Bournemouth, didn't they? So I think there are a few weaknesses there, and just to consolidate that position, I think they should buy a few more senior players.
Definitely a winger, I think.
Yeah.
They're going to need a right winger. You can't rely on Willian and Pedro, can you,
True.
to get you through. And with Hudson-Odoi being sort of injury-prone, lacking fitness, they're going to need someone out wide to start delivering.
The thing is as well that I remember watching Chelsea under-23s versus Liverpool under-23s earlier on in the season. Tarek Lamptey got sent off later on in the game, but I thought it was class throughout.
Yeah.
He then had his Premier League debut against Arsenal the other week, and what's been good to see from Chelsea is those youngsters that have been doing well in the under-23s and under-18s, they've had to turn to. So obviously then now it's going to be interesting to see whether they end up going out on loan. We'll watch that through January, because if they can sign players and they have more people to turn to, it's going to be interesting to see whether the likes of Tarek Lamptey will be loaned out elsewhere. So it'd be good to watch that. But yeah, going back to what I said before, when people criticise the likes of Solskjaer and whatnot for poor performances and how poor the league is at the minute, I think it's important to praise Frank Lampard for the excellent job he's doing at Chelsea, because to go from Championship management to Chelsea is a big step, and many were questioning how he'd do, and I think
he's not
done a
really
good job
changed
so
his
far.
philosophy either, has he really? And he's done the exact same thing he did at Derby.
And I know there's some people saying, because obviously his record is worse than Sarri's, I believe, at this point last season, but it's a young manager coming through. Hardly any experience compared to Maurizio Sarri, so it'll be interesting to
Sarri's
see.
working with Thingy, isn't he? Kante
Yeah.
and Hazard, whereas Lampard is bringing in Mount,
That's the thing.
Tomori.
They lost Hazard, they lost their best player, and they're still pushing, and as you say...
They didn't make any move to replace him,
Yeah, it is to do with, well, they did bring in Pulisic, but he's not really lived up to that. Pulisic, yeah.
I like him.
But anyway, to move on, Andre Green, he's been disappointing, really, for Aston Villa. They bought in that Wesley. They have Jonathan Kodjia as well. Wesley's not particularly done too good for Aston Villa this season. I know people expected more from him. Certainly Aston Villa fans expected more from him. But Kodjia hasn't really had his opportunities, and certainly Andre Green hasn't. So quite rightly, Andre Green's been offered a way out to Charlton.
Yeah, he's not really... He struggled earlier this season. He was at Preston, and I think he played 4 games. And the whole of last season he was at Portsmouth, who anyone could really go into that team and improve things at the moment. And he played 6 times and scored once over the whole course of the season. So I think it's more now he's getting a loan to sort of get himself in the shop window, secure something for next season, because he's not going to make it in the Premier League, is he?
No.
He's probably not going to make it in the Championship, to be honest, if they do go down.
It's interesting because I know for Villa last season he played quite a key part when the likes of Kodjia and Abraham got injured, and actually Villa fans were excited to see him. But I think, to be honest, since moving to the Premier, he's had a lack of opportunities, and it's just difficult, isn't it?
It happens, doesn't it, when a team goes up? It's usually you go for the reliable players, don't you? You spend a lot, and it's always the youngsters that seem to suffer.
We'll move on anyway to Mark Whaley, who's obviously moved to Swansea, another young player. Ivorian, 19 years old, joining Ryan Brewster.
Yeah, he's very highly regarded at Chelsea. From what I've seen, he's sort of the next big thing to come through. And he is people do seem to like the look of him. You know, he's got 11 appearances this season in the Premier League too. He got a goal and an assist too. So he seems to have that sort of all-round ability that you tend to lack at youth football, don't you, when it comes to centre-backs? You know, Vandenberg being a key example. They tend to excel at one thing and then fall apart, but he's moving to the Championship, so he's clearly got that sort of maturity about his game, hasn't he?
Yeah, certainly. But just one more, or a couple more things actually. firstly, looking at Lucas Nemecha, who's
Yeah.
gone to Middlesbrough from Manchester City. He's had a couple of loan moves in recent years. He went to Preston last season. I know we saw in one of the games, didn't we,
Yeah.
where he
He didn't shine.
no, not at all. He looked out of place.
Mm.
And then he was at Wolfsburg, was it?
He was at Wolfsburg for the first half of the season. He only played, what was it?
6 games.
6 games, yeah, something like that. And I think that was more because he's just declared for Germany, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Last year he switched from our under-21 side to the German under-21.
Which is easy to see why, because you look at Nketiah, Brewster.
Exactly.
Players like
He
that.
hasn't got a path. And I know he's only 19 and that, but he plays, he's quite a big lad and he plays sort of beyond his years too, from what I've seen. And he's been unlucky that he didn't really fit in at Wolfsburg. I think he's just a little bit too young.
He's a big lad
Yeah.
who usually plays on the wing, can play up front. So I think it's difficult for him because he doesn't necessarily have that mad speed. But it'll be interesting to track him at Middlesbrough. I know Middlesbrough not particularly been doing too well this season, but in recent
Takes the
weeks they've
pressure off
been
them, doesn't
picking
it?
up a few decent results.
Got a
to be
draw.
fair.
Got a draw against Spurs.
Beat
the
West
weekend.
Brom as well in the league, yeah, 2-0 over the winter period. Anyway, lads, we're going to end on Troy Parrott, who we've spoke about before in the youth show. Obviously, again, he's another player that was linked to a loan to Doncaster Rovers. There were other teams as well in League One, but Doncaster was one of the teams that I think were interested. Correct me if I'm wrong, Liam.
I mean, if a player's a striker and is under the age of 21, we've been linked with him.
There you go. But yeah, so that's interesting. But then Mourinho came out and says he's not ready for a loan. Obviously, still a very young player.
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane's injured. It's going to be interesting to see what they go with this weekend, because Harry Kane's injured. They don't necessarily.
He's making
have...
the bench, I think, regardless of whether he starts.
Exactly. And is Son still suspended, or is he?
He's back now,
back.
isn't he?
He's back.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be realistically either Son or Lucas Moura through the middle with Parrott on the bench. Joe, have you heard much of Troy Parrott? No?
I haven't, to be honest, no. But those stats look very good.
Yeah.
They put up there.
He's been very, very good.
He was
in
brilliant
the youth
against
league.
us.
Yeah, superb.
I was surprised to see him starting for the under-18s. I thought it'd be quite a, we thought it'd be quite a straightforward game, didn't we? We thought we would beat Spurs and we got hammered, was it 4-0? 4-1?
Absolutely smashed.
Yeah, and he was incredible. He was running through our defence, he was playing balls through, he ran the show, and I really wasn't expecting him to play.
I know he's a man that Tottenham fans like as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, Tottenham, they like the young players coming through. And Troy Parrott's one of them that they were looking to. And I know when Mourinho first came in, he was a name that people were saying, I'm worried that Mourinho won't give an opportunity to players like Troy Parrott. So it'd be interesting to see now Kane is injured. If Piatek does come, and if he doesn't acclimatise to football in England, it'd be interesting to see if Troy Parrott gets a bit of football for Tottenham over the next few weeks.
I'd also be keeping my eye on Republic of Ireland under 21s, because he has a partnership with Ida. Got Parrott and Ida, two very, very young looking, very successful players. So
be interesting to see.
That'd be good to see.
We'll definitely keep an eye on that over the next few weeks and months anyway. Obviously, we'll be back next week for this show as well, talking about the latest transfers and anything. If you want to see anything else, just comment. And actually, if you go to theredmentv.com, subscribe, you can watch our youth show every week where we talk about all things youth. Not just Liverpool, it's a wide variety of young footballing talents. But anyway, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Cheers.